Number one, two. Hi, everybody. What's going on? I'm Mark Duplas.
Woo!
Welcome.
Woo!
Welcome to the Q&A. Proud of all of you coming out to a live theater to see a film without human beings in it. We got a lot of energy to watch it. I really appreciate you coming out tonight. We have a very special guest tonight. I want to first bring out the man without whom none of this would be possible, my good friend and writer and director, Elliot Tuttle. Here we have Bijan Kazaruni.
Yeah.
We have a producer and music supervisor, small reviews like this, we often do multiple roles. Gentlemen, take your seats. Let's have a conversation. Oh wow, this is like a moderator seat. Oh,
Thank you guys for coming.
Woo! Yeah.
So, I think the most interesting conversations are going to come directly from you guys, but I will ask a couple of questions up front. So, give you guys a little perspective. I've known Elliot since he was about 15. He was a young film fanatic who was friends with my nephew. And he lived in Bangor, Maine, and I would see him occasionally. We would talk about any movies, and I was like, I have never seen anybody this young who sees more. He sees like 7 films a day. He was just obsessed. Together, I helped him set up a film festival at his high school, and then he came out here to go to college, and he worked with us on a bunch of productions. And he was just relentless, and he was always writing things, and I was just so taken with Elliot. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to give you some money to make a movie. I'm not going to give you a lot of money, because that's the way this goes. So figure out how to do what you do, and you're a very daring and interesting voice. Probably should be 2 or 3 people. Probably should be at an Airbnb. Probably don't tell the people in the Airbnb that you're filming there.
Yep.
And this is what you came back with. So talk to us about that. How you came to this idea. What was it about for you?
It was, when we had that conversation, it was after a few years of writing a million things that were always too expensive to make. I had my producers who were here with me, always trying to help me make them. And it just couldn't work. And so then when we talked about what this eventually ended up becoming, I knew exactly what I wanted to write. I had been watching so much Catherine Briot at the time, which is an incredible French filmmaker, who really...
I heard a couple of notes.
Yeah.
There's a good reaction there.
Who really kind of, very incisively interrogates adolescent sexuality in such like a vulnerable, honest way that never feels afraid of anything. And I had been thinking a lot about my own adolescent sexuality. I had been thinking a lot about teachers that I had fantasized about, when I was 13. And this kind of became like this natural extrapolation of who I kind of realized in retrospect I had been fantasizing about. And in that way, that was the inception, but it became this kind of very discursive exploration of the way that sex changes the way we live our lives.
There were a lot of discussions in post-production as we were editing the film, and it's really interesting when you have a movie like this that audiences inevitably bring so much to it, and they have a lot of feelings about whether you, as a filmmaker, were asking them to identify with this older gentleman in the movie, or to feel for him, or to have empathy for him. And it was a really interesting line, and I've dealt with that somewhat, but never more so in this movie, and this question really for all 3 of you, as you were navigating that, because admittedly, I wasn't that close to it as part of the process. You guys were really in it. So I want to hear if there were any, how you kind of figured out, how you were going to frame that for audiences, what you were willing to accept of, what, some people are going to be pissed off and they're going to walk out. Or I want to try and save as much of the audience as I can. Where did you come from? Where did you land on that?
Well, it's funny because it was in the entire process too. Like it was definitely in the editing room, but through so much of writing the script, like you make a film for an audience, and you make a film for an audience to connect with, and you can't make something just for yourself. And so it was always very top.
Some people do that still.
But it was always very top of mind, and I think that the thing that I landed on was I thought that this story was worth telling. I had so much personal investment in the story. Some of it is very personal, and the thing about I feel like I'm asked so often about if this film is a sympathetic portrait, if it's meant to vilify, and really the answer is neither. I mean, this character simply exists, as do both characters in the film. And I think what's interesting is that the film kind of forges like this individual relationship with each audience member, because everyone brings so, as with sex, everyone brings so much of their personal experience to what they're seeing that it's different for everybody. And I think I realized that I couldn't make a film that was about a group of people, or about gay guys, or about sex offenders.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't make something that was, I could only make a film about two characters. And so it was just, how do I completely investigate these singular people? That was always top of mind. I don't think, any of the filmmakers I love ever make any creative decisions out of fear or of some kind of moral panic that they're expecting. It should just be very personal expression. And so that was always the guiding principle.
Yeah, if I can add, something that you said very well is the character of Hank, the kind of crime that he represents. We would hope that before stepping foot to a theater, every audience member kind of agrees and is on the same page that like, we're not okay with that, we're not endorsing that, and that kind of common understanding is what allows us to then meet the characters where they are as who they are.
And I think sort of to bring it back to your question about the edit choice that you made, that I think makes that you can never not understand who these characters are to each other as the home video interstitial things. That cuts in, no matter how charming Reed's performance is in that moment, you understand who these characters are to each other, and the audience is never off the hook.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. This is a movie that has sex at the center of it at its core in so many ways, and you have these different cinematic formats that you employ that are evocative, and a lot of connotations involved. I'm curious, when you decided, let's use this camera perspective and let's use this camera perspective, and how much. Talk a little bit about how much you shot in different ways that you could have done differently, where the decision landed here.
Yeah, I think when you're making a film with such little money, you have to find. You have to find ways to activate what is already there. You know the minimum coverage that you have to get, and you know that you have to make your day, but you need to embed something in the film that activates it, creatively. And that was a big, why we did the kind of mixed format presentation. But to me, kind of the creative behind that is I really enjoy this camcorder aesthetic in that it's like this Venn diagram that kind of only encompasses either like family home movies or snuff films. Like it's very, that it feels like pretty, just what those, what it does. And so I really wanted to create that sense of intimacy that you get from, that aesthetic of family home video, and also use that for danger. It kind of puts you on your back foot a little bit. Because to me, the film is really, as with Love Sex, is laced with something so personal and intimate and kind of rife with danger. And so it was really using that aesthetic to try to motivate and punctuate, drive the feeling.
Yeah. I gave you $100 to make the movie. Good plan. I would like to open it up to the audience for some questions. We got one right here. Gentlemen.
Hi there. Very powerful film.
He's filming him right now. Just so you know.
Sorry. My question was with the writing, the difficulty of creating such an eloquent character that we sort of feel things for at the same time we're aversion to him with. What was the complexity of coming up with that character, and how long did it take? Because there's a difference between just writing something and sort of like invoking feelings and emotions into them.
I mean, we really do our best to refrain from telling the audience how to feel. I think that I hope that if I've done my job correctly, the audience brings their personal feelings to the character. But I, at the same time, could never attempt to write a cartoonish portrait of it. It needs to be a real person. And so, however you respond to, hopefully, I create as real a person as I could have. That's how one responds. But yeah, I did a lot of research for the character too. It's really hard to kind of research these pedophilic sex offenders or pedophiles. Like it's you can really only look at personal testimony. And there's a great documentary called Pervert Park that I watched that is about this group of sex offenders who live together in a mobile home in Florida, like a trailer park, and they all kind of hold each other accountable. And they live like far away enough from a school district that they can like all live in one place. And it's really, really fascinating to hear these people speak about their lives. And I guess you can only really understand it anecdotally, but so many of them endured sexual abuse as children. I really encourage anyone to watch it if you want to.
I mean, I think go home right now. You want to look at the feature. That's really what we're talking about. I can say, having been involved with Elliot earlier, more so on the script phase, one thing that you did very well on this, and one thing I think I recommend to a lot of screenwriters is, you did your research. It was almost like you were preparing for this like sprint. And then when it came time to write the draft, you actually wrote very quickly, not intellectually, very instinctually. Then we got that, and then we looked over into the side of the analytical brain and said, let's figure out how to make this work. But if you're too analytical and too heady in the creation of this, I find that, you might not have gone to the places you went to. And I think that was part and parcel of this movie being what it became. Yes?
How many days did you shoot for? And how loyal to the script were you?
How many days did we shoot? How loyal to script?
I'll let my producer answer how many days.
Yeah, 12.
And we were very loyal to the script. It was so. Also, reading here, who can't be here tonight, they're in New York. If there's one thing that I'm the most proud of in this film, it's their performances. I wish they were here with us tonight, but we worked so hard for just a few days before arriving on set. And a lot of dialogue was rewritten as soon as I heard it in either of their mouths. And so by the time that we got on set, it was like all of that kind of been figured out. And they were both like, damn, Kieran has like, the first about 15 minutes of this movie was cut in half. It was like 30 pages of monologue that we shot. And he shot that all in like 2-3 days. Like he had to know by heart like 10 pages of dialogue just continuously each day that we shot. It was the same every single time. It was really cool to watch.
Yeah, and I think, for those of you who are filmmakers and curious about this, it sounds crazy to shoot a movie, in 12 days, but we design a movie from the front so that it can be made properly on a micro budget, essentially 2 characters, 1 location. As crazy as it sounds, it's actually not that insane to make a movie like this in 12 days. You have enough time to do enough takes, experiment, and really see what's working.
And it's a testament to the producers, too. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about the intention / meaning behind him giving Alex the photo of his younger self, and also showing him like his younger self?
Question about showing the photo of his younger self.
I think that it really situates both of those characters in like a single point in time that we don't ever see them in the film, and then you kind of there's this resolution and Hank taking his away and like separating the two photos. To me, that felt like a really clear end to, you know, both of these characters have an arc where they're intertwined for so much of the film, and then at the end, all of a sudden, they're not, and they have to figure out how to live the rest of their lives. And that felt like, I think always when I'm writing, it is trying to find and be as specific as possible about like the exact story that I'm trying to tell. And as soon as the film reaches the end of that story, you have to like get out as quick as possible, I think. And so to me, that felt like the end of their story. And it felt, yeah, it speaks to how they hopefully live the rest of their lives, which is part.
Can I add one thing to that?
Sure.
Well, last night at dinner, Reed was telling me that moment with the photos came to him in a dream.
Oh yeah. Reed talked a lot about the childhood photos, and he had. We had talked about that together, and he had like a dream about it, and that was how it kind of came to be, and then we were able to like work it in.
In this way, and in this way only, we're like a David Lynch film.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was really love the film, big fan. I was really struck.
Next question, thank you. We love rhetorical questions in forms of confidence.
I was really struck by Hank when he confesses at the end that, you know, he got away, James got away. Did you feel that, how important was that to be able to tell that to somebody, and is that the first time you think like he's told that to anybody? Like how important was that moment for him?
The question was about when Hank confesses that the potential victim got away, and how important that was to the storytelling today.
He says that in that moment when he's half asleep, because I don't think he would ever break himself to admit it when he's awake. Yeah. But thank you.
I always loved that, but we talked about that early on in the script. It wasn't in the first draft, that we like this idea that, you know, just as we feel that the audience may push them to, you know, beyond where they're capable of seeing, identifying, understanding, whatever it is, that to go one level beyond that would be a nice place for it if we pull it off. And Reed did a really good job of selling it, and Elliot directing in a way that felt, I think, more credible than just him admitting it, you know, in his fully lucid state. Yes.
Hi. I want to talk about the cinematic language a little bit. I love the script, but the construction of the film, the beginning, I feel like a lot of us know what that guy is, what he's doing in the chat room. And I found the use of the synths, which are like beatless synths, which are so overused in 2020 cinema. In a way, Celine song in Past Lives. Sorry. But this I found quite moving because it's like the opposite of what at the beginning is like very like lunar logic. Sorry to bring that up, but also that is its own cinematic language of like everything's like synced to music. It's like beats and it's crazy and super gonzo. And this, I wanted to know like if you thought about that while creating that beginning scene, but throughout the film as well, and what you think the soundtrack served.
I love that question. I thought about it a lot, and to me, the Aaron character feels very personal in the way that it feels like I was trying to like render this kind of contemporary gay man, and to me, there's kind of so much banality to that experience. It's like all of these signifiers of porn that you're watching, of like saying faggot and all these, and it's like there's something. I'm trying to think of the right way to like verbalize it, but it's very depressing to me, and it's like very lonely, and to me, that was a lot of what I was trying to infuse. It's actually, I'm sorry if I'm not answering it in a great way, because it's a really great question. I think I thought a lot about it, and I don't think anyone's ever asked me about it before. So thank you. Yeah, I love that. Also, our composer Isaac is like, I talk to him a lot about this kind of stuff, and he's a really great guy and great artist.
He did a great job. He has a project called Reshul, which is really great.
Congratulations on stumping Elliot with your beautiful questions. No one ever does that. You did really, really, really well. Any more questions? Yes, right there in the middle.
How was the casting?
Question about casting.
Reed was always number one. I love that guy. If you guys have seen Mass,
Yes.
he is incredible in this film.
He's a Tony Award-winning actor. He's
Yeah.
tremendous.
Yeah. Really, really, like, could not have asked for a better person. I thought that part would be impossible to cast.
He was appropriately terrified.
Yeah.
In a good way.
For audition, that would be impossible to cast, but he said yes, and I am the luckiest person in the world, and it was just go from there. Kieran is his manager is a friend of mine, and I knew that his manager kind of reps a lot of people that I could think of for this part, and so we had a bunch of people chemistry read. And Kieran and Reed really just had this like immediate chemistry where if they didn't do this film, I think they would have found each other later in life and have been best friends. So yeah, and we got a great casting director, Landmark, who is one of the most thoughtful people to ever do it.
Yeah, I think it's important too when you're talking about indie films. A lot of people play what they call the name game, which is like, well, we're a small budget movie, we can't pay a lot, so probably we're just going to have to make offers to people and they're going to show up and we're going to hope there's chemistry. And one thing that we all tried to provide for Elliot was an opportunity for him to see these people together before we cast them, which is so critical when you have a movie with just a house of two people. The movie lives and dies by it. And I think it's actually a flaw in the indie film system right now, where you're just sort of forced to make offers to people and you have no idea whether this is going to work or not. And so part of the structure of this was, well, we don't have to have huge movie stars. Let's just get the best actors we can get. And hopefully because they're not huge movie stars, they won't be insulted when we ask them to come in and sort of chemistry together. I think it's really important. Yes, sir.
Were there things in the film that you were afraid of?
Were there things in the film you were afraid of, and it ended right there? And I wish you could have seen his face, because it was actually really, there's a good energy about it.
I'm gonna be honest, not really. And I think one of the great things about making something for very little money is having very little creative overhead. And is a testament to having great people around you who don't ever try to make you second guess what you want to do. And this is something I think about a lot, is like a lot of my favorite filmmakers, like Lars von Trier, Catherine Breillat, Pasolini, those are all people that I really, really revere. And I think if any of them had made a film and was afraid of it, then I wouldn't be watching it probably. And so that was just trying to kind of be like the greats, striving to be like these artists that I admire so much. And I think it would be really, really difficult to create from that place of being scared.
Well, I could say this is someone who's known Elliot for a long time too. You've always been unafraid to talk about the things that are uncomfortable in human dynamic or in yourself. That's part of who you are as a person, and you brought it into the art. I mean, when Elliot started this process, he was 23. He had made much other than a podcast and a really, really tiny movie that no one really needs to see at this point. And I think it's really part and parcel with who you are as a person. Not a lot of people are going to make this movie. Yes, in the middle back there, with see some glasses and maybe a beer. Yeah.
Can you talk about the use of the archival footage, like the kind of kids stuff that was peppered in, and why the fact it was so
No, that's a good question. I wanted to find an aesthetic tie to these camcorder sequences that are meant to evoke this home video kind of dangerous thing, and it was used to. I really wanted something to kind of explicitly speak about what these characters are like speaking around so often, which is kind of very upsetting. Kind of spoken scenes of child sexual abuse. It's really, really difficult when you are dealing with these two characters in kind of an echo chamber of perversion, and I needed something to cut through that sometimes.
You're such a thoughtful person. It is. Usually young filmmakers, this is like a 55-year-old filmmaker. I think we do have time for one more question. So, yeah, I like that because some people pull this down. They're like, no, that's not good enough. He is confident. He's got it.
Can you talk a bit about the reception from film festival programs? Because there seems to be a lot of talk about how...
Yeah, question about reception from film festival programmers and what a tough road we have with the nature of the material.
And also how you've managed to get it out despite that.
Yeah, and how do you cut through?
Yeah, I think the film industry is in kind of a fragile, tenuous place right now, and I think that it is. I think that people, especially tastemakers and gatekeepers, are kind of scared, and I think that they kind of have a right to be. I think the industry feels very unstable a lot of the time, and I think probably more so than we know, one bad movie could sink a company. Like and so I think that we always think of film festivals as places of discovery and really rich quality films, and they still are a lot of the time, but also they're sometimes sponsored by Acura. Like, there's people
A lot
are
of the time sponsored by
right. And so the feedback that I got, and I think that it kind of working in this industry in any capacity, you will have feedback channels. And the feedback that I got was that people liked the film, but they couldn't program it. And what is really, really special about this one for me is being able to get this movie in front of an audience, because we don't, as filmmakers, we don't make a film to appease a board of people curating something for a festival sponsored by Acura. Like, we make it for an audience. And so it's been a long road, but also a very charmed one. I think we all feel pretty lucky, because a lot of films of really, really amazing quality are never seen by audiences in theaters like this. And so I think that we just all feel pretty blessed to be here, given the current state of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very humbling experience. This whole role of Spirit has been fantastic partners during new shot. So I encourage everyone to keep an eye out for the upcoming releases. We're their first narrative release, but they have a few docs out.
Ooh.
But in terms of the kind of festival production process, I've been lately, like Juliana using that phrase, like, thank God for onions and prayers. Because I feel like there's also a world where a small movie like this comes out of a bigger festival and is overlooked. That happens more times than I can think of. I hungrily look at the Sundance lineup, and then I don't know how many films I could name that played last year. And then our premiere at Edinburgh, that really gave us a big shot, because they're sort of relaunching the festival, and it gave us an opportunity to stand out, and gave an opportunity for others' voice to be heard. So I think everything happened the way that it needed to. I kind of have no regrets or kind of misgivings about that process.
Yeah, I mean, the industry is in a tough place right now, but I take a lot of hope in the fact that, a very small, daring, challenging film with not major movie stars in it, is selling out theaters in LA and New York this weekend with very little promotion and very little traditional, indie film festival tapped by the Kings run-up, which is really, really cool. So that's the benefit of a broken system. is that you can scramble around to find new roads. That is happening right now. Speaking of which, this is our opening weekend, you guys. We're in LA and New York. So, this is where I'm remark is like, I'm deputizing every single one of you motherfuckers. If you like this film, go onto your socials and post it with a link to the ticket sales in LA and New York. And if you didn't like this movie, shut your fucking mouth. Thank you for coming to the cinema.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.